on professionalism in medicine, and welcome to some people who were admitted or found out that they were admitted Sunday. So to get your act in gear and get here on Thursday must have taken some doing, but we are very pleased to have you, and particularly today because our speaker is one of our alumni, and it's the first alumnus of this program who has spoken in this lecture. I met Dr. Richards in 2003 when he came into my office as an advisee, as a freshman, and it has been a labor of love and pride and sometimes forbearance, but both of us are still here. And let me tell you something about Dr. Richards. Many of you in the audience have taken his course in the GPPA program in health politics, healthcare, health delivery. So he's not a stranger to us. And even while he's doing PhD work at Yale, he managed to come back both physically and by electronic media to continue teaching. So Dr. Richards completed the GPPA program, but while in the GPPA program, his curiosity moved him all over a map. And in the spirit of this program, it was the intent, our intent, to allow him to move over the map. And then he went to medical school and here, and he and I maintained our relationship as academic father and son. And one of my most proudest days as an academician was when shortly before graduation, Mike came to me and said, "Would you put me?" And that's as wonderful a moment as any faculty member can have. So Mike graduated from UIC Medical School with an MD and an MPH. And then for the previous number of years, the question was, what is he going to do afterwards? He really wasn't sure that he wanted to be a clinician. But what he was sure of is he wanted to study in depth the nature of the medical profession, healthcare, and health delivery. So we, over the years, plotted a strategy. He applied to a number of schools of public health, including Johns Hopkins and the University of Michigan, two very stellar schools of public health. And he also applied to Yale. Now, the interesting distinction about Yale University is that they take only one student in the country a year for the program that Mike is in. He was that student. So we are proud of him in every dimension. And he's going to talk to us today about the expanding medical profession, considering health consequences beyond those clinical, and the role of physicians. A mighty big thing to swallow, but we'll enjoy swallowing it. Thank you.
So I'm trying out the wireless mic. Are we okay? Yeah. Very fine? Great. So thank you very much for the introduction. I certainly want to thank the sponsors of this lecture, and also the College of Medicine and most of all the GPPA faculty and students for allowing me to be here today. It's always a privilege to address a room full of young, intelligent people. It's certainly an honor to engage in a topic as important and certainly as intimidating as professionalism in medicine. As many of you have taken the course, we voted on that, you know that it's something that is dynamic. It's something that we reassess over time. It's something that we continue to push forward in new ways. And it's something that is hard to conceptualize. It's hard to understand. And when thinking about professionalism in medicine, the crux of this lecture series, I started to wonder if we found ourselves within an intriguing if not puzzling situation. Indeed, when I was preparing this lecture, I started to think we're probably going to be confronted with no less than a handful of puzzling situations as we try and dive into both the topic of professionalism in medicine, but also the specific topic I'm going to try and introduce and at least do a satisfactory job discussing today. And so this first puzzle is, if this lecture series is about the profession of medicine, which is both something we want to explore in its history, its changing over time, its evolution, is it a bit strange that I stand here before you, not as a clinician? I don't practice medicine. I'm a medical researcher. I spend the bulk of my time engaging in activities that could best be described as manuscript preparation and numerical manipulation. I play with math a lot of the time. And so that seems to be a bit of a contrast in what you would typically try and do in this type of a lecture series. But despite the challenges and maybe disconnect you might think of at the moment, I'm hoping that I can argue that what I've done in my research to date, what is part of my research agenda going forward, is also a piece of a very large and growing body of literature that I think is, I don't want to say underappreciated in the medical community, but is less talked about. It's a less salient feature of a lot of the clinical community's discourse and actions. And so I want to kind of frame it as something that may have both relevance and importance now and going forward, and also talk about if we were to integrate these type of features, if we were to consider these health consequences that aren't necessarily medical or clinical in nature, what would we want our physicians, both those in training and in the process now, and those in practice, to know and to work with. That being said, so now we have a second puzzle. For those of you who spend your time engaging with popular media, the news, or politics and policy, you might think, if you were to come here and give us a lecture, particularly if you claim to teach us about these things like health policy and health economics in your classes, why in the world are you going to talk about the Supreme Court as maybe the biggest health legislative achievement, at least in the last half century, arrived 2 years ago, and now stands in the balance of 9 unelected individuals to decide its fate? I think good reason, you might think, well, maybe that's what we should be talking about. But I'm going to argue once again that we can at least do away with this puzzle momentarily and think about the legislation, the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, ACA for short, had some longer time horizons built into it, both in its implementation and also its goals and proposed achievements. It wanted to see healthcare change in a productive way here in America, not just in a year, but over the course of time. And so I'm hoping that what I'm going to talk about tonight will at least, keeping those type of horizons in mind and the types of issues that health reform at its core wanted to deal with, you might find some lessons that would be relevant. Unfortunately, I can't tell you, or at least I won't pretend to tell you how the Supreme Court is going to make the decision, but I think I can tell you something that has implications both for the current health reform and whatever will come next. So now we'll do our third puzzle. And this one gets exponentially harder than the other two. And I'm also afraid that we're unlikely to probably resolve it here tonight in our short time together. But our healthcare system, either through intent or neglect, has fostered one of the most fascinating paradoxes known to any rich world society. We are champions in healthcare spending, while we claim precious few victories in terms of our actual health. Our state of affairs in the U.S. healthcare system is both complicated, but also unsatisfying. Now, In any lecture, I try and avoid two components common to most contemporary talks, one of which you've probably noticed, and for any of you that have been in my classes before, I despise PowerPoint. And so I will not belabor slide after slide that will only repeat what I'm going to try to tell you. The second thing is I'm trying to avoid a litany of numerical figures. And the reason I do so is I tend to find that people either get them confused, don't quite understand what they relate to, and most importantly, tend to misquote them going forward. So instead, I want to interface with a lexicon that is less taxing to remember, but at the same time very clearly depicts the state of affairs in U.S. healthcare. So let's just talk about, in the last 15 years, this recent time dating back U.S. healthcare. During that 15 years, we have spent a lot of money on health and medical care. Meanwhile, our growth in healthcare spending seems to only be outpaced by our decline in the overall nation's health. For a trackable translation, we might think American society has a lot of health problems. Now we have two things that we need to keep in mind. We spend a lot of money on healthcare, yet we still have a lot of health problems. And what we do and don't do during our daily lives seems to bear very much on these issues. And that's what's kind of brought us to this paradox, where our last dollar spent on healthcare seems to return far less than a dollar's worth of health. Take, for example, obesity. Again, for any of you who spend any time in popular media, and also in politics and policy, and anything related to healthcare, you would notice that, particularly in the last 10 years, obesity is something that comes up quite often. People propose different reasons for it. They seem to be multifactorial and complex. They seem to interact. And we're also trying to propose different ways to deal with it, of which we've had very limited success. But one thing that I think the academic community, the public health community, policymakers, and just the average individual have come to embrace, at least to some degree, is the idea that perhaps diet and activity seem to contribute in a direct manner to obesity. Why do we care about obesity? Because it seems to also contribute in a very direct manner to health problems that we care about. Significant health conditions and pathologies that are both debilitating and severely costly. And what do I mean by costly? I know I just gave you the warning that I would stay away from numbers, but I think this one is important to at least contemplate briefly. When we talk about the cost of obesity, when one wants to define the numbers terms, we're not talking about billions of dollars. We're not even talking about billions of dollars. The most credible estimates in this line of work typically place it at somewhere between $100 and $200 billion per year, just related to obesity. That's one component of our health problems facing this country. If you needed a reference point to try and kind of grasp what $100 or $200 billion would mean, that would eclipse the gross domestic product of most countries in low-income and middle-income brackets. We're talking about a substantive amount of money. And more importantly, although we find our spending on this, on obesity as troubling and startling, we're deeply concerned with the recent trends we've seen in America's youngest population, its kids. We're seeing rises in BMI and other obesity-related measures that are concerning. And we're also starting to see some health consequences of that. But it's not just something that we're thinking about for middle-aged, elderly individuals. We're now seeing it in adolescents and even younger cohorts. But I want to use that to transition to what I think I want to talk about mostly today, both to introduce something that I think is under-considered in a lot of clinical contexts. Also something that is one of the most, I think, interesting growing bodies of literature in public health and social science. And that's the idea of a non-medical consequence of disease, which again is a bit of a nebulous term, and we'll try and unpack it a little bit. But at the very least, it seems like something that's directly related to disease, but yet has very little salient weight for most of the public and most of the clinical community. What it refers to is the impact of a particular health problem poor health categorically on certain domains in an individual's lives that are not captured by what we think of as their medical needs or current health status. So we're operating in domains that are outside of how your blood pressure is doing or how your cardiovascular system is functioning. And importantly so, these effects in these other domains, the non-medical consequences of the work, can happen at a lot of different ages over the course of the life. So we're seeing it both for elderly and retired individuals. We're seeing it for the very youngest, even infants, and even in utero. We're starting to see these consequences materialize, and anywhere in between. And you can imagine if these consequences are meaningful and they're sustained, and they're happening over almost all ages of society. Society may be severely impacted by them. And although some of the effects can be transient, research has typically shown that a lot of them are permanent. And additionally, these any ripple effects that go on through the broader society also seem to be sustained. But at the heart of this, we're attempting to explore something like, let's entertain the notion like diabetes, for example, that goes beyond the microvasculature and cardiac and renal functioning, and ask the relatively simple question, although it's difficult to investigate, but can diabetes matter for other dimensions of your life? Can it matter for how you engage in your job? Can it matter for how you engage in your academic studies? Can it matter how you engage in your social psychological relationships? These are the type of questions, and that's kind of what I mean both in entitling this, health consequences beyond clinical, but also when you start hearing the term non-medical consequences of disease, that's what we're talking about. So more specifically, we're talking about items like social effects. Disease can be isolated. For example, if you imagine someone diagnosed with HIV/AIDS, that can certainly impact them and their kind of community environment, in some sense, disenfranchise them and make them ostracized outside the community. It can dictate what community you interact with them and going forward. And additionally, it can have spillover effects onto your community in terms of maybe bringing a new pathogen to the community or perpetuating the spread of the current pathogen. Additionally, we have this concept of peer effects, which has also gained a lot of traction in the popular media. But it's the idea that your health behaviors, and your health status can actually affect your neighbors, whether it be your friends or social group, whether it be your classmates, whether it be your peers at work. In these different domains, we found evidence that your actual health status and the decisions you make about your health seem to have spillover effects on those around you. Additionally, we can have psychological effects. So a disease like diabetes or HIV/AIDS or something else, any sort of diagnosis one might imagine, can impact the mood and relationships of that individual. Similarly, it can change the valuations that individual places on their self and also on their future, which may dictate their future decisions and how they proceed forward. We can have economic effects, and this is where I spend a lot of my time, and what I try and elaborate on a little bit more tonight, are things like human capital, which again is a term that's maybe familiar to some of you, not so to others. But human capital is this idea of education, accumulation, of training, of the things we do to build our skill sets and our repertoires to both pursue careers and to maximize our potential. And we're starting to see that disease can reduce that. It can restrain that. It can damage it, which is putting individuals on a different trajectory than they otherwise would be. Similarly, we see these type of effects in labor market outcomes. And what are labor market outcomes? Well, it's things like employment. Are you employed or are you not? When you are employed, for how long? Or do you have sporadic gaps in your employment and have difficulty maintaining your work trajectory? Also, your productivity when you are employed. How well you do your job. And similarly, job mobility. A lot of this seems to relate both to the presence of disease and also the concern about employers' health insurance, which I'm not going to go into, but in any case, it seems to represent that those facing this disease with the given diagnosis seem to move less in terms of job mobility. Now, an important thing to understand about social effects, psychological effects, economic effects, and there's more, these are just a few you can consider about the non-medical consequences of disease, is they all can relate to each other, and indeed one can cause the other. It's not too hard to imagine that a negative psychological effect of a given diagnosis could then impact how you engage with your school, or how you engage with your job. And similarly, a disease that reduces your ability to engage in your school and engage in your job could feed back into your psychological and mental health. So, this is a growing body of literature. Economists, sociologists, political scientists, public health experts are deeply committed to exploring this. It's growing day by day. We're finding new domains, new outcomes, and new interesting findings all the time. And if it's academically interesting, that's wonderful. If it offers new scientific knowledge, that's fine too. But I think a fundamental question remains, should there be any sort of sense of urgency? As we have gone through great lengths to uncover the clinical consequences and clinical risks that come from a given disease, a given pathology, it doesn't necessarily follow that as we find these other outcomes and other dimensions of people's lives, that there should be an equal sense of urgency, a call to action, if you will, to go with it. So to try and frame the sense of urgency, I want to engage in a quick personal digression. It's just an end goal story about a particular paper I did related to this topic. It was on diabetes, as a matter of fact. And what we did is we looked at how does a diagnosis of diabetes impact adolescents and young adults. And so the outcomes we looked at were schooling. Did you complete high school? If you completed high school, did you go into college? If you went to college, did you complete college? And also beyond school, then in jobs. So did you get employed? If you are employed, do you miss a lot of days of work? Are you more at a greater risk to lose your employment? Do you get paid the same? And similarly, do you have to engage in other sorts of what we might think of as like welfare benefits and other types of social programs? So we looked at these things, and perhaps not that surprising, uniformly we found negative impacts, that the presence of diabetes seems to negatively impact all of these different dimensions. So it seems to be reducing human capital in terms of education and skill development. It also seems to be reducing how people perform in their jobs in labor markets more generally. Additionally, we found and these were novel findings. So most work related to diabetes and economic outcomes, economic consequences, if you will, were targeted at older individuals because we tend to think that's where a lot of these problems manifest themselves in terms of time. And so that's where a lot of the research is drawn. So we tried to essentially pose the same questions and say, well, could it be happening to young people? So the obesity rates rise among young people. If we're seeing diabetes ticking upward among young people, should we care? Are there immediate and urgent outcomes to deal with? And so, my co-author and I, we wrote this paper. It got quite a bit of attention. New York Times wrote about it. NPR did a little story on it. CNN wrote about it. But I thought it was interesting. But it gave me an opportunity, a very, very unique opportunity. I was asked to participate in a summit in Washington, D.C. And the entire purpose of this summit, which is a one-day event, was to consider the growing diabetes crisis. And so they invited different academics who had written different papers, all within this realm, to come down there, both present their research, and then engage in a dialogue to say, is this a problem? And if so, what do we want to do about it? That was a lot of fun. But it was also very different. So I'm used to presenting my work in academic environments. So going to different universities, going to different conferences, having a bunch of people like you in the room who either are currently studying or have completed their studies and are part of the larger academic community. This room had very little of that. In fact, I think the academics were probably outnumbered at least 6 to 1, maybe 10 to 1. There were 300 people in the room, and they were legislative aides. They were journalists, they were lobbyists, they were advocates, and all the people from this realm that are kind of the policy movement area, something that the academic community has a relationship with and isn't necessarily always engaged in. But these were people who were, I think the colloquial term would be movers and shakers. That's what they did, and that's why they were there. They wanted to hear about what I had to say, but most of all, they wanted to know, so what should we do about it? And similarly, on this Tuesday morning, I was going to be presenting an environment which was completely new to me. I was also sitting next to the Surgeon General. So the U.S. Surgeon General was sitting to my right. We were going to be talking together. That is also not a typical Tuesday for me. I'd never met the Surgeon General before. She's very nice. But, you know, so I'm sitting there next to the Surgeon General, and she turns to me and she's like, I read your paper. And very abruptly, she asked, so what do you think we should do? And I was speechless. Part of it was 7:30 in the morning, I had my cup of coffee. But another part of it was, it wasn't completely clear to me. Both when I examined my research and also other research in this kind of larger body of literature about the economic consequences of disease, the psychological consequences of disease, the sociology of disease, these larger things which seem to have very important implications. It's very unclear what to do about it. And what I'll finish with in this little anecdotal digression is, so you have all of these people in the room who very much want to move policy, they want to see change happen, they want to see change happen today. You have some of the most powerful people in the room, like the Surgeon General, who's, for the most part, her entire job is about moving policy day to day, finding new problems, finding new solutions. And then you have people like me, who have done a little paper in this field, which they thought was okay. But now, a larger segment of the policy world, I guess let's take even society, you can even take it farther. They not only wanted to know what lessons have you learned, but most importantly, what would you do about it? And so I think, at the very least, that often be some insight. This is something that people in Washington, people in state legislators, and maybe even people at a kind of a global level are starting to take very seriously. They're starting to be both aware of this, they're starting to get wind of this solution, and naturally starting to think, well, what should we do about it? Is there anything we can do about it? And I think it goes back to the original, or one of the original points I made, and I think this actually does relate to health reform from now and going forward, is because it all comes down to one simple thing. We want to restrain national health spending. We want to get out of the paradox. We don't want to spend, and not see little returns for our actual health. And one of the defining lines of the ACA that's always kind of repeated and talked about at learning is the idea of bending the cost curve. Changing our trajectory, our spending on health, and at the same time improve our health. And that's all about health. But now I think we have a more difficult question, which is what I would propose here tonight, is when we think about the non-medical consequences of disease, it's more body of literature, something that policymakers and policy wonks are starting to really care about. Is there an actual role for physicians in this to play? And what about medical education by association? So first, I want to be clear that in no way am I implying that I think physicians are ignorant of these type of things. I think many of them, in their clinical experiences, both for those who have just started practicing, for those who have been practicing for a very long time, I think they encounter these type of things. I think they see it with some of their patients. Maybe not in a large-scale setting, but at least in these different anecdotal areas, they see the patients deal with these complications, deal with these non-medical consequences of disease. But the question here is, do we want to move from ad hoc identification of these different components that may pop up in clinical practice, and also on the teaching component, because as you, for those of you trained in medicine, as you go into your clinical rounds, you may very well talk informally about these sorts of things, where the clinician you're working with and learning from may comment to you about these sorts of things and say, with this disease in this particular community, we're also really worried about how it affects their school. And we're also really worried about how they're able to engage in the community. They may not have stable housing. But again, these are ad hoc learning environments. And so the question is could we use this body of literature, if presuming that it is valuable and broad, to actually institutionalize it into the way we teach, into the information that's imparted on training positions and current positions. Now with that, I think, fairly provocative question, I would say that a visceral response to it, either in ardent support or complete opposition and rejection of, I think both would be equally incorrect. I don't think a strong feeling without some qualifications in either direction would do justice to both the nature of the question and also the complications and just practicalities of instituting this embodied language. For one thing, physicians face time constraints, and they seem to only get more extensive with time. They're seeing a lot of patients, and they're expected to deal with large volume of patients on a daily basis, and also they're faced with an exponentially growing body of clinical literature. Thousands of pages of new clinical information is published every day, and the emphasis on evidence-based medicine is strictly about taking that knowledge and creating best medical practices. So by no means are they bored. By no means is their time sitting idle. They're working very hard, and the financial pressures of medical practice and in our reimbursement systems only add to that kind of compounding effect. And so it won't be easy to offer a new source of information, which they may or may not even be receptive to in terms of what value it has for the way they conduct their practice or how their patients' lives are impacted. Likewise for medical students. Medical education requires a lot of learning. You go through a lot of courses. I think for those of you who were at the panel yesterday, at least one, if not more people, had mentioned about just the volume of information that you're presented with when you step into formal medical education. And it's 4 years, and it's a very packed 4 years. And I think it's instructive that I've never encountered both friend, acquaintance, or anyone else who, when they started their residency, ever made the statement that they're learning too much in medical school. Residency is just too easy. Almost never happens, right? They always talk about, oh, I wish I had more, I wish I had more experience or more time or more something. So medical students are working very hard and they're facing difficult time constraints. And likewise then for medical education, for those who are constructing it, for those who are trying to improve their curriculum. These things aren't done with ease. There's a politics in the process. There's competing and often conflicting interests that go into it. And so trade-offs are inevitable, compromises are inevitable. And so rightfully saying, I think, everyone or every medical school should have somebody like me who dabbles in this line of research, come and talk to medical students and residents and so on and so forth, to talk about the non-medical consequences of disease. I don't think that's fair. But with that, and those caveats, I think it's worthwhile to explore what would be some potential benefits of actually doing it. What would be some potential benefits of both training physicians and physicians in practice being more aware of the economic consequences of disease, for example? So in at least one way, one thing we're always concerned about when patients are making choices about their health investments, their health behaviors, and ultimately what they do in their daily lives. We're afraid that they don't quite consider the future in the most optimal way. In some sense, they overly discount the future, but they tend to underweight the health problems they may be facing in the future based on the decisions and actions they do today. Sometimes they completely ignore that. And why I think this could matter for what I've introduced here tonight is I think a lot of that discounting is because I think on average, individuals have a hard time contemplating what their health is going to be like 20, 30 years out. And so when you present them with they're at risk for a given thing, or given pathologies, or that puts them at greater risk for something else, I don't think they have a very tangible way to grasp what their health status will be in the next coming decades. But when you start talking about things like economic consequences of disease, when you start talking about the psychological consequences of disease, you can add some means to what you're talking about. So if you're talking to someone, for example, like the diabetes thing, we're talking about, whether or not, holding all else constant, it may be the difference of whether or not you go to college or complete your high school education. That's very soon, right? It's not something that's trying to think about your health at age 40 or age 50 or beyond. Similarly, if you start talking about it may impact you in your job, so you're in your 20s, and you're getting your first real job, and we said, if you let your health status deteriorate, you may have trouble, with your job. And so you can add a little bit of urgency and a little bit of a more recent time horizon, something a little bit sooner for your patients that will, I think, in some sense, offset maybe the lack of emphasis on their future health. Similarly, so a lot of health behaviors and health choices and health investments are influenced by context, environmental cues, peer interactions, and they often demonstrate what we think of as learning. So as you engage in the behavior, you start to learn about the behavior, you start doing similar going forward. And this also is very important when we start thinking about can the behaviors of parents affect the behaviors of children. So if the parental diet is not very good, that a spillover effect on a child's diet, and the child demonstrates this learning behavior so that by the time they're an adolescent or an adult, they too have a less than ideal dietary pattern. And so similarly, we start seeing some consequences of that, which again can translate into things like economic consequences of disease. And so I think that would offer a potential talking point for a provider to my pet parent, for example, because again, it does become a bit of a challenge to express the seriousness of health and health investments to a parent about their child, when a lot of times you're talking about outcomes that are decades down the road. If you're talking about things like how they do in school, I think parents can connect with that and resonate with that. It's something that they can see right now. Another, I think, opportunity is clinical medicine is a great place for innovation. Right? So that's where a lot of the magic of the patient-physician interaction happens, because the person is right there and they're engaged with a clinical provider. And so if providers are aware of disease processes and their non-medical consequences, I think there's a chance for them to both evaluate their current patient population, their needs, their health status, and start thinking about what are ways that we can deal with this, what are ways that we can start to reverse some of these trends, and similarly so for patients who may already be dealing with, again, pathology. And maybe they'll say, okay, so if we know it's going to impact their schooling, or we know it's going to cause complications for their job, and so on and so forth, what are things that we could design? What are support structures that we make? How can we tailor resources in order to minimize these consequences? Because I think clinicians are very good right now at trying to anticipate all the additional risk factors that come with a given pathology and trying to get optimal medical management in order to minimize progression to more severe debilitating diseases. But if you're not really aware of these other outcomes, some of which may happen much, much sooner, I think it might be a lost opportunity to look for some critical innovation. And another thing that I would throw out there, and certainly this would be contentious, and some current providers may very much disagree, but from our brief exposure to clinical medicine and also my constant interaction with those practicing medicine currently, I think, at the very least in the primary care setting, but maybe even beyond that, there's a perpetual battle against apathy. And I'm talking, a lot of what I've said before is actually on the patient side. And trying to get the patient to have more value for their health status, more value for their health investments. But here, we're talking about empathy actually on the provider side. And I don't mean to say that providers have a predisposition to be disenchanted with their patients or dismissive for them. I mean, I think it's actually quite challenging to engage with individuals who have a particular health behavior or health problem that you want to see change, you want to see improve, but they are slow to change their behavior. If there's anything we know from many bodies of literature, it's very difficult to get people to change their behavior. And so I think it can be emotionally and psychologically taxing for a lot of providers to kind of be faced with this and to continuously push and prod to try and get the change, but often not seeing a lot of fruit born out of it. But I think if we start giving them, exposing them to these ideas that there can be these urgent problems and urgent consequences that can steer off, I think it may actually be a psychological influence. It might be a motivator and a driver. They say, if I can, change this behavior a little bit, I can actually see something that may improve this individual in the next year or in the next couple of years, as opposed to trying to always fight the battle to preserve their health status and to their ability to do some work. And for one more, what I would again argue is a potential benefit of trying to integrate this information more into medical education, medical knowledge, and medical practice is, so as I was trying to stress with my experience again over there in the nation's capital, is people do really seem to care about this. So we have policymakers and public health experts, and even others that are actually moving forward with this. I was struck by the number of people who came up to me after my presentation and gave me their cards, and we've already thought of our adventure, we're going to do something like this. And I was floored by that, because in my mind I was thinking, we still have so much to learn. We know these things, we haven't uncovered the mechanisms, we don't know, it seems to impact these outcomes, but maybe those outcomes will be eclipsed by other outcomes. And my kind of academic setting was in full drop. I was thinking, we have so much that we still can do. But for them and for their style of work, we're saying, we're convinced. We're convinced that diabetes causes these problems. They go beyond the cardiovascular system, just beyond the renal system. And so we're going to do something. We're going to start an innovation. And I think that's instructive for physicians, because in some sense it faces them with a choice. So one choice would be a gamble, in which case they would just say, I hope that the interventions they design work. I hope that they integrate nicely with medical practice. I hope that they do well both for the patient and for the medical care delivery. In some sense, they would remove themselves from the conversation and let those in Washington, the state legislators, or within any other context, move forward. Or they can do just the opposite, and try to constructively contribute, and try and say, well, in the way medical delivery is structured right now, in the incentive structure that we face, here are the types of opportunities that we can have. Here are some potential innovations that we can engage in, and here are ways to measure these type of outcomes, and to know if they're actually winning some battles. And I think that's important, because I think for much of the movement in healthcare, and particularly health policy, this is another thing that I try to impress upon my students. For the most part, a lot of physicians, or I should say the larger medical community, often takes the back seat. And I think that's unfortunate, because I think they have some of the most important insights to offer. And so I don't see integrating this type of knowledge as something radical or problematic into medical education and medical practice, but instead making them aware of something that their insights can nicely collaborate with. But even so even if you were to believe that these outcomes matter, and that perhaps it would be good for physicians to be aware of, say, the economic consequences of diabetes or any other pathology they might be interested in, we still arrive to a final puzzle that, again, much like a lot larger puzzle of U.S. healthcare spending, as I don't think very easily resolved. And that's what would be the recipe for successful integration. So if we know that providers are faced with severe time constraints, if we know that medical students are faced with severe time constraints, and if we know medical education has so much that they need to accomplish in a relatively short period of time, how can we bring in a new body of information and successfully integrate it? The short answer that I'm going to offer is I'm not quite sure, to be blunt. Because the more and more I've thought about this, and the more and more I've been exposed to this topic in my own work, and reading the work of others, it becomes less and less clear on how you can overcome these hurdles, circumvent various impediments. But I think there's at least a few things that offer possibilities and potential opportunities that we can explore. One of them is economies of scale. So when I think of UIC and similar institutions, I notice that they have a very big and productive medical school. They have a very big and productive school of public health. They have social scientific departments, and within all of these different things, they have a lot of people that are researching different components of health, both what creates health and what damages health. So we look at it in very different ways, and that's kind of where this body of knowledge on the non-medical consequences of disease has come out of. And so we start to wonder, well, can we take advantage of that? So if we have all these different minds, these different research opportunities, this critical mass of experts, as it were, in diverse fields, is there ways to integrate them together in our curriculums, in our conversations, in our seminars, that would allow sharing of knowledge in a possible way. Additionally, I think it's really important to present this information as early as possible. That's why GPA students are some of my favorite people, because by compulsion, you have to listen to them, to tell you about these sorts of things. But in all seriousness, I do think it's very constructive to do that. I think it's a unique and important attribute of the GPA program, is that you can be exposed to these type of topics. You can start thinking about pathology in ways that you typically and almost uniformly will not think about in medical school, and start to form your own ideas about it. Start to form your own passions, your own interests, your own curiosity. And one of you, maybe all of you, hopefully, will start thinking about innovation. Ways you would go around it in trying to both minimize the disease process, but at the same time also deal with these potential other outcomes and other impacts in other domains of individuals' lives. And then last, I think, an opportunity that's at least worthy of further consideration is are there ways to filter and facilitate this information to actually practice information. So one of the things in a completely separate research project I was engaged in actually here's one of the students trying to understand how do clinicians absorb the ever-increasing body of information that we're presented with when actually trying to practice medicine. So when they're in the clinical encounter, how do they make use of that? How do they navigate? How do they communicate with it? We tend to find we can do a very good job of it because the time constraints are substantial, and there's yet to be incredible resources to help them do this process. And so we can think about what are ways to facilitate this integration so that instead of being bogged down by this new information, they can have it, manage it at a low cost, and then even potentially act upon it in explaining a risk to their patients, encouraging them to change their behavior, or maybe even averting some problematic outcomes. So those are three opportunities. I found the first two to be the most tractable at this time, which again, I think is good news for those of you in the GPA program and also those of you that are just starting in medical education. I encourage you to seek out this body of literature more because I only gave you just a handful of examples. We could spend another 5 hours just listing examples. And you can find a lot of things in all the different disciplines, different ways to perceive disease and how it impacts individuals. They're very instructive and fruitful things to do. I will end there and kind of let you at least consider what I've said. You can stand up and throw things at me. You can say this is foolish beyond compare. But again, I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here. And I hope we've learned something, at least that there are non-medical consequences of disease, but at the very least you learn what that little phrase means. So I think the question already.
One, I keep swelling with pride. Take some pride alleviating pills. But yes, well, over the years, you've always been filled with profundities. So in my mind, one of the profundities that you gave us was one, the Pasteur said chance favors the prepared mind, and you happen to be sitting next to the Surgeon General. So what do you think would have happened if rather than you sitting next to the Secretary General, Francis Collins was sitting next to the Secretary General, and she asked him the same questions?
So it's a matter of personal policy. I don't typically speak for Francis Collins.
No, I didn't ask you to do that.
But I think that was a very instructive moment in my young and now somewhat naive policy career that I didn't have a clear explanation. I didn't have a clear intent for how to take my research from that to policy.
So my bet would be that Dr. Collins would say, well, one of our major goals is to eliminate diabetes. So therefore, the more we know about diabetes, the more we are able to design therapies not only to treat the acute effects of diabetes, but to treat the consequences that you talked about for diabetes. And it reminds me that Dr. Kellum doesn't like when I say I grew up in something, but I grew up in an age where I did grow up in an age where polio was endemic and frightening, and if you lived in a big city and somebody 3 blocks away got polio, the neighborhood was closed down and so on. And there were all sorts of parallel industries that developed on this. The iron lung, hospitals, infection, peculiar forms of infection, all sorts of things, camps that assured you that you could go to this camp and never get polio during the summer. And once Salk and Saban came along with their vaccines, those industries totally disappeared. So I would submit that you're right, that we have to deal with in a real holistic way with the consequences and the long-term and non-medical consequences of a medical disease. But I just keep coming back, and maybe this is my being propagandized as a scientist. I keep coming back to me, if I get rid of the disease, I get rid of the long-term consequences of the disease. And for example, it is likely that statins will alter heart disease or the consequences of heart disease by 40% just in a period of 20 years. So my answer to the Surgeon General would be keep funding research and expand that translational research component to arenas that aren't traditionally looked at.
So I actually said a very similar thing to the New York Times. Because they asked, like, well, so what would you do to make sure that adolescents and young adults didn't have problems in school and get a job and they have diabetes? And I said, well, I think we could cure the diabetes because that would take care of most of it. That wasn't the response that they were looking for. And so I very much agree with Dr. Chambers on that. And I think that's an important distinction to understand this. So I'm just appreciating these non-medical consequences. It doesn't remove the value of medical education. So we might think of innovations that deal with these outcomes and minimize their impact. At the same time, it should actually be a stronger impetus for treatment, for cure, for effective medical knowledge. That, and then you don't have to deal with these type of outcomes.
Okay, folks. Critical thinking, applying that critical thinking to things necessary to think about, your chance to interact with Douglas.
So I think we hit 4 out of the 5 GPPA goals. There wasn't anything like music or literature. That was my fault. I had a few pop culture references. I forgot.
So, sorry, I'm thinking numbers. So, I'm thinking numbers, Jim. So, when it says your study proved, I don't know if it proved that health consequences exist outside the clinic, and that people do that already, but you must have proved something more specific, right? So, what exactly did you, like, there must have been some numbers, so you can say. So, what can you quote some numbers so you have an idea?
Yeah. So we found that controlling for a host of factors that you think would be correlated with both education and employment and these kind of things, and also exploiting the nature of our candidate set, which also led us to another statistical trick. We found that holding all else constant, the adolescents and young adults diagnosed with diabetes were about 7% less likely to graduate from high school. And that, although you may not think, well, 7% is not that big of a number, but that's larger than the black-white differential. That's larger than any male-female differential. And on par with other disease processes like ADHD, for example. So there's been a lot of literature looking at how ADHD interacts with education outcomes, and 6% greater risk of high school dropout is kind of part of that. Similarly, we saw roughly about $4,000 lost in wages for individuals with diabetes and non-diabetes. We're still using other data sets to explore the actual mechanisms. But one thing that you may think about, and I think is a fairly natural corollary from that, is in the context of employer-sponsored health insurance, they may anticipate that they know that employees that are diabetic will have larger future medical care costs. In some sense, they're penalizing them up front by giving them lower wages, and so allowing them to be part of their insurance protocol. At the same time, we still also saw that they're more likely to be absent for work and these other kind of productivity reducing mechanisms. But and if you like this, so there's really great papers on this, and I'm quite serious. They've seen health shocks is what we'll typically talk about in economics, but it just means something bad suddenly happens to your health status, even in Europe, in which you're on a different trajectory for the rest of your life in terms of how you do in school and how you do in labor markets. And that's it's fairly startling.
So what do you think about journals like The Lancet? Because while it is a leading medical journal and it does include clinical studies, it also includes a lot of information about things outside of the clinical environment. So it talks about the CDC and the ways that it can improve, and then it also talks about the consequences of depression outside of the hospital and ways that it can improve that. And so, it being a leading medical journal, it seems to me that it should have some influence.
Sure.
But,
so the Lancet is particularly good on it. It's always been maybe the most sympathetic to us silly little social scientists. But New England Journal of Medicine, JAMA, these two you've seen, particularly starting about the mid-90s going forward. Now out of every issue, there's 1 or 2 of these type of articles that kind of talks about these more social scientific concepts related to disease. So you're very much right that there's a movement within the literature, but still I'm not convinced, and again this goes back to this medical decision-making study that I was a part of, that guarantees that it's getting the information to providers who are relating the most effective way, because they still face the same limits on the time. I don't think too many providers read all of these journals, even that many of them cover in a given week. still opportunities for innovation to try and think of how can we facilitate that knowledge sharing process. But there's certainly movement for action among the leading buildings.
So this is a question that so I gathered from the talk that it seems like there's a little bit of a disconnect between legislators and researchers or people otherwise trained in the and that somebody like you thought, there's so much more that this sounds right now and not really quite ready for action, whereas legislators and because they were, they want to do that. So do you feel like that disconnect is harmful to our society? And also, do you feel like physicians are starting to engage with that despite their time constraints? And then thirdly, do you feel like countries where sort of top officials have been trained as scientists or as engineers, do you feel like in those nations that they have a better handle on how to, I guess, progress in addressing issues that involve scientific and societal?
So those are all great questions. Let's take them in order. So the first one is, you asked, does it seem like policymakers operate differently than researchers? And that's absolutely true. But let's think about the incentive structures that face those two individuals. If you're a tenured professor, how long do you work? Decades, right? So you will be working on similar and different problems for years. It's just the nature of the job. What's the lifetime of a senator? What's the lifetime of the U.S. representative? Right? So it's 2 years for them. So they're always campaigning. So they're always looking for the next thing. And similarly for different advocacy organizational structures, right? So their incentive is to win money and win prizes for their organization to kind of move themselves forward. It's their incentive structure. So you have these competing incentive structures that make policy creation and implementation is a real challenge. And so you always have to kind of keep those things in mind. Is it necessarily a bad thing? Well, I mean, what are your alternatives? Do you want an unelected technocratic government where just individuals who have been designated as smart people just come and do as they please? I don't know. Will we expect all you guys to become senators?